Okay, I'm going to use this program to demonstrate value returning functions. And value returning functions are a very specific type of function. Their job is to return one thing back to main, just one. So you could get one value from the user, return it back to main, calculate one thing, you know, calculate one thing, return that back to main. Um, and I know once you learn a little bit about reference parameters, students tend to like to return everything through reference parameters, which is okay, but you do need to understand value returning functions. So many of the functions in the standard template library are value returning functions. So you need to understand the difference between void and value returning and how to write these and how to call them. So what we're going to do, and I'll just show you, I have a constant declared pi 3.14159 up here. It's okay to put my constant in the global section. Main and any of the functions will then have access to it. Shouldn't put variables up here, but constants are okay. So here I have three variables: radius, area, diameter. I ask the user to enter the radius of a circle. Then I calculate the area and diameter, right? The area is pi r squared, so we have our constant pi times radius raised to the second power, and the diameter is just 2 times the radius. And then it displays our results. It displays the radius, the area, and the diameter. So let's just run the program and see what it does. All right, I'll say the radius is 3, the area then 28.2743, and the diameter is 6. Okay? All right, so what I want to do is I want to put this code right here. I'm going to get one value from the user, the radius, and I'm going to return it. I'm using a value returning function. So I'm going to take this here. I'm going to put it in my function. I'm going to call my function getRadius. Okay. Now, value returning functions are a little bit different. They need return statements. So I'm going to return my radius. All right, so notice I still have a couple problems. Now, when you write value returning functions, you need a return type, but the return type of the function is not void. The return type is going to be the data type of the value being returned. Now, in our program, radius is a double, so my return type is going to be a double. And the last problem is radius is undefined. So it needs to be declared. Now remember, we have two places to declare things. We can put them in a parameter list, or we can put them locally inside the function. And when you're trying to determine where it goes, you need to think to yourself, in order to execute this code, do I need anything from the main program? And the answer to that question is no. I'm just going to enter the radius and I'm going to return it back out. So I'm returning it through the return statement itself, so nothing has to go in the parameter list. But radius does need to be declared, so I'm going to declare it right here. Okay, so here's my function. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it up at the top so I have a prototype. And here's where I need to call it, right? I need to call it here. I got to get the radius before I continue on and try and do calculations with it or display it. So the function call, right, looks like this, but it's going to jump out to the function and it's going to get the radius and it's going to return it back here. I need some place to store that value that gets returned. Right now I'm not storing it. In fact, if I run my program, okay, uninitialized local variable radius is used. That's the message I'm getting because I'm trying to use radius right here, but I didn't store it anyplace. So when you call a value returning function, you have to do something with that value that's returned as a result of the function call. What I'm going to do in this example is I'm going to store it in the variable radius. And now radius has something in it for my calculations and my display. Okay, so let me run this. Right, and everything runs great. Okay. All right, so now I've got some calculations. I'm going to do them one at a time because I'm showing you value returning functions. These are functions that return one value. So I'm going to write a function to calculate the area, and then I'm going to write a separate function to calculate the diameter. So here, I'm going to write a function called calc area. This is the code that I want in that function. Okay. So a couple things I need to think about. What do I need from the main right? I've got to declare area and radius. But if I think about to do this calculation, I need to know what the radius is for the main program. I already got it from the user. I need to know what it is. So it's got to go in the parameter list. The area I'm calculating and I'm going to return it back out here. So it doesn't need to go in the parameter list. It just needs to go in the function. And then I need my return statement. Okay. The only thing I'm missing now is my return type. I'm returning area. Area is a double. So my return type is also going to be a double. Okay. Be very careful. This is the name of my function. This is the name of a variable. Sometimes students are like, hey, I think I'll call this area and this area. No, you can't do that. You need to come up with unique names for your variables and your functions. Okay, I'm going to copy the heading up to the top here. So I have a prototype. And then again, I need to call it. So the function call itself looks like this. But remember, it's a value returning function, so I need to store the value that gets returned someplace. And that's what I'm doing here in this assignment statement. I'm assigning it into area. So now I'll run it again and make sure it works before I continue on. Okay, good. And a lot of times it's good to write things one function at a time. I know this is different because I already have the whole program. So as I put it in functions, I'm doing it one at a time to ensure the functions work. But if you're writing your own program, you can just write one function, test it, make sure it works, move on to the next function. Okay, so this I'm going to take out and I'm going to put in a function called calc diameter. Okay, so again, I need to know the radius for the main program, so I'm going to put it in the parameter list so I can pass it in. Okay, diameter, I'm just calculating in here and I'm going to return it. So, right, I need my return statement and I have to declare diameter. Again, I'm only using it in this function right now, so that's where it's declared. And I have to make sure I have a return type, which is a double because diameter is a double. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put my prototype in. And then I'm going to call my function. All right, I need to pass it the radius. And again, there's the call, but when it returns that diameter back, I need to store it someplace. So I'm going to store it here in calc diameter. Okay. And I'm going to run this and make sure it works. Oops, it did not work. I did something wrong. Oh, there we go. I forgot to put a semicolon at the end of this prototype, and somehow I have 2 up there. Okay, now I'll run it again. Okay, and everything looks good. All right, I'm just going to show you an alternate way to do these functions. I'll just come in here to the calc area function, and I'm going to just comment out, this section of code right here. It's a multi-line comment, /star, starts a comment, / ends it. And if you want to just do a simple calculation, you can just do it right in the return statement. Okay. You don't even have to declare a variable if you don't want. This can just return. Now, a return statement can only return one thing, but in this case, it's returning an expression. So the expression is going to get evaluated, and then it's going to return it back out. That's an okay thing to do. So I just wanted to show you this other way. If you're just doing a simple calculation, you might want to do it right in your return statement. Either way is correct, though. But let's just run it and make sure everything works. Okay. And we should put these in a display function. Well, I'll just do that quick. But again, this code that goes in here, our display function, that's just a void function. Okay, that's not a value returning function. It's not returning anything. And then I'll put my prototype, just because, it's better programming practice to have your code in functions. And again, one last time, I'll run it to make sure everything works. Okay, that's good. That's an example of using value returning functions. And again, you can combine them, right? I've got 3 value returning functions and 1 void function. All right, and that's perfectly fine.